and I am barely giving myself time to breathe between these. I want to be done with it as fast as possible. Chapter 7, Arguments for God's Existence. This section will be as irregular as the previous in that it provides the most basic sketch of various arguments. Well, that's kind of been the pattern for this whole fucking thing. The most basic sketch, as in flawed representation of various arguments. This is for 3 reasons. 1, in an article meant to criticize atheism, substantiating theism is not necessarily required. I'll grant that point. Sure, whatever. I'm feeling generous right now. It's 7. 7's the lucky number. Superstition? No? I didn't think so. But yeah, I'll grant the point. In an article meant to criticize atheism, you don't have to substantiate theism. Fine. Though, what is Chapter 7 for if you title it Arguments for God's Existence? Oh, it's because you're just going to be providing basic sketches. So you're not going to go into any sort of depth. You're just going to assert things and move on. Right, so you're keeping to the pattern, as I said. 2, elucidating each argument and seeking to defend it against attempts to topple it would be an undertaking which, as per 1, is not necessary, except it is, and would expand this article beyond its present and already hefty size. Agreed there. This article is gigantic. The scroll bar on the right is not yet to the middle point. And this is a 13-chapter article, as far as I can tell, so the rest is going to get even longer than what I've done so far. My poor voice is going to just disappear on me. 3, it is important to note that these arguments function most effectively when considered together, since individually they tend to be specific to a particular point. What? Okay. I should mention, I only read up to Chapter 4 originally, so this is completely new to me, so you're getting my genuine reaction to this bullshit. Therefore, it seems necessary to present various specific arguments and recommend how they may work together to form a more encompassing argument. The problem with this, of course, is that if you present a really bad argument and your other arguments rely on it for support, you just built yourself a house of cards with no cards on the bottom, and the whole thing collapses in a heap of fail. Let us consider these arguments, some of which are presented in various forms. 7.1. 1. The universe had... forms of the cosmological argument. 1. The universe had a beginning. 2. Anything that had a beginning must have been caused by something else. 3. Therefore, the universe was caused by something else, a creator. I'm surprised it didn't just say, was created by the God who had a son named Jesus and had the Holy Spirit and all that bullshit. 1. Every part of the universe is dependent. 2. If every part is dependent, then the whole universe must also be dependent. 3. Therefore, the whole universe is dependent for existence right now on some independent being. How the fuck does that follow? I mean, the first one didn't follow either, but this one really does not fucking follow. And these are just 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. No justification, no explanation, just here's a bunch of bullshit, quote them at will, and move on. We're not going to explain how these are supposed to make sense, because they don't. Let's face it. Just use them and, this is the ammo for a drive-by for theists to use. 1. Every event that had a beginning had sufficient cause. No. The universe had a beginning. Yeah. Therefore, the universe had a sufficient cause. Cause with a capital C in this one. Because, of course, the cause is God, and you always have to refer to God with a capital letter, even if it's the. So, I guess, cause. Capital C, the fuck. No, that, again, does not follow. Every effect has a cause, says you. The universe is an effect, says you. Therefore, the universe had a capital C cause. Does not follow. 1. Oh, we're up to 6 now. An infinite number of moments cannot be traversed. So your God doesn't exist then. Great. 2. If an infinite number of moments had to elapse before today, then today would never have come. Wrong. That's a misunderstanding of how eternity would work. You would eventually get to this point, and in fact, there could be an infinite number of points in time prior to this, and we would still be right here, right now. So this is just wrong. 3, but today has come. Wow, must be, being a dumb fuck for children. 4, therefore, an infinite number of moments have not elapsed before today, because if you make a bullshit point, a bullshit conclusion from that point validates it, i.e. the universe had a beginning. 5, but whatever has a beginning is caused by something else. 6, hence there must be a cause, capital C, parenthesis, creator of the universe. I like that in this one they had to specify that we're back to the creator again when we imply the capital C cause without using the word God. Back to 3. 1, an actual infinite cannot exist. Great. You described your God as infinite, therefore your God does not exist. 2, an infinite temporal regress of events is an actual infinite. So again, your God does not exist. Great. 3, therefore an infinite temporal regress of events cannot exist. Thank you for becoming an atheist. Oh wait. 1, the temporal series of events is a collection formed by successive addition. I guess, yeah. 2, a collection formed by successive addition cannot be an actual infinite. Wrong. 3, therefore the temporal series of events cannot be an actual infinite. Again, wrong. This is just a rephrasing of your second point. It's a 2-point argument, and you're wrong on both. Well, you're wrong on your conclusion, basically, that you can add things up to infinity and beyond because you just keep adding things. The hotel with an infinite number of rooms comes to mind. You have an infinite number of rooms, and you want to invite, and all the rooms are filled in your infinite roomed hotel, and someone comes in and they want a room, but all of your infinite amount of rooms are filled, and you have an infinite amount of rooms that are filled with someone, an infinite number of people. But here's how you solve it. You tell everyone that's in room 1 to move into room 2, and that room moves into the next room down, and then you have a free room at the beginning, so someone comes in. So yes, you can have an infinite amount of successive additions. Not even understanding what the fuck they're talking about. Nothing new here. 10-point argument here. 1, some things undeniably exist, e.g., I cannot deny my own existence. Some people do that, somehow. A lot of religious people do that. Take, for instance, Hinduism. Hindu faith has it that you don't actually exist, you're just a manifestation of the psyche of the ultimate God, which I think is called Brahma or Brahman, and you're part of a dream, and when you die you re-become part of Brahma, unless karma or whatever. So some people do deny their own existence, so therefore it's not undeniable, and therefore this whole thing is invalidated. But continuing. 2, my non-existence is possible. So you can't deny your own existence, but your non-existence is possible. Contradicting yourself much? 3, whatever has the possibility not to exist is currently caused to exist by another. Bullshit. Does not follow. 4, there cannot be an infinite regress of current causes of existence. Yes, there can. 5, therefore, an uncaused cause of my current existence exists. Does not follow. 6, this uncaused cause must be infinite, unchanging, all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-perfect, and has a name God, and has a son named Jesus, and loves you because he sent his whole beloved. Oh wait, I'm adding a little bit to the end of that. I mean, if you're just gonna make shit up, why not just go full crocoduck here, and just toss in everything you want? Oh wait, they're doing it. 7, I shit you not, this infinitely perfect being is appropriately called God. 8, therefore God exists. 9, this God who exists is identical to the God described in the Christian scriptures. I wonder why the fuck that is. 10, therefore the God described in the Bible exists. .2. Like I said, these are just a list of bullshit with no justification attached. 7.2, argument from cosmological natural theology. 1. Time, space, and matter came into existence at a certain point in the finite past. 2. Since time, space, and matter began to exist, they had a cause. Prove it. 3. Therefore, whatever caused them was timeless, or eternal, spaceless, not subject to locality or omnipresent, and matterless, immaterial, non-physical, or spirit. Well, thank you for finally asserting that your God made the entire universe out of nothing, which you say is impossible. Therefore, are you an atheist yet? How many times do I have to ask that question before it finally sinks in? 7.3. Forms of the teleological argument. All designs imply designer. The universe is designed, therefore God. I simplified that one a little bit, but that's basically the bullshit here. There is a great design in the universe. No, there isn't. 7.4. Forms of the ontological argument. God is the best thing, greatest guy ever. You can conceive of such a thing. You can't be the greatest thing ever if you don't exist, so God exists. I simplified that, but that's what they're saying here. That's the ontological argument. You define God as the greatest thing. You say that it's greater to exist than to not exist. Therefore, God is the thing that exists. That is the most greatest, most fantabulous thing in the world. My rebuttal to that, beyond the fact that this is just making shit up to prove a point, my response to that is that anything that exists is subject to decay, and something that does not decay is greater than something that does decay. Therefore, non-existence is greater than existence for the ultimate greatest thing imaginable. See, you can just make shit up and support your argument. 7. There's another one, but it's exactly the same thing. So it's the necessary nature of God. Oh, God is necessary for the universe. Fuck you. No, he's not. 7.5. Forms of the moral argument. Moral laws imply a moral lawgiver. Did anyone else hear William Lane Craig just now? There is an objective moral law, which even William Lane Craig denies implicitly in the words he says. Therefore, there is a moral lawgiver. And the same thing again, same fucking bullshit. 7.6. Dostoevsky's arguments from the consequences of positive atheism. If atheism is true, then man is the chief on earth. If man is the chief on earth, then he can abandon absolute standards, i.e. morality. If man can abandon absolute standards, then everything is permissible. Therefore, if atheism is true, everything is permissible. And even if this were true, which it is not, what the fuck is your fucking point? Appeal to consequences, maybe? Oh, if atheism is true, then everything's possible. That's bad. Atheism cannot be true because it's the rejection of the belief, in the existence of gods. But if you use atheism the way that this lying douchebag Mariano, author of this article, has been pushing it for the past, 6.5 chapters, the atheism that he's defining as the affirmation that there's no God, if you affirm that God is not possible, then everything is permissible. Why? And even if that's true, does that make God poof into existence magically? Oh, if atheism is true, everything is permissible. Therefore, God exists. Does not follow. Complete non sequitur, and just complete bullshit. And there's a little quote in the sidebar here, because I really want to drive this point home. If atheism is true, everything is permissible. Fuck you. 7.7. Argument from joy. I shit you not. 1. Every natural innate desire has a real object that can fulfill it. Really? I would love to eat a Gerp Flaps right now. Therefore, Gerp Flaps must exist to fulfill that natural innate desire. Do I need to continue? Because I've just completely destroyed this argument from joy. 2. Human beings have a natural innate desire for immortality. I don't. I certainly don't want to be immortal. I already get bored on weekends. It's the weekend and I'm recording this bullshit because I'm bored. Do you really fucking think I want to live forever and be bored infinitely forever? Therefore, there must be an immortal life after death. Well, bully for you. What the fuck is this even supposed to... Oh, if you want something, it really exists. I want wings. Nope. 7.8, Ronald Nash's argument from numbers. And this is the first one in this entire chapter that actually has text, not just a list of bullshit attached. An argument proposed by Ronald Nash. Isn't that the guy in A Beautiful Mind, the CIA analyst, the intelligence analyst? The name is vaguely familiar. Is known as the argument from numbers. This is how Ronald Nash explained it. ... When I used to teach philosophy to undergraduate college students, I would sometimes ask them to tell me what the number 1 is. They would usually reply by writing one of the many symbols we use, such as 1 or I, the Roman numeral. I would then explain that such symbols are not really the number we are seeking, but are only convenient ways we use to refer to the real number 1. No wise person should ever confuse a symbol for something with the thing itself. And annotation. So what then is the number 1? The first step is to recognize that the number 1 is a concept. What is a concept? The short answer is that it is an idea. What is an idea, then, douchebag? Oh, I'm sorry, Ronald Nash. You're a douchebag. The next step is to ask where the concept of oneness exists. The idea of oneness, like all ideas, exists in minds. And water's damp, therefore God, right? The third step is to note that the number 1 is eternal. If someone has trouble with this claim, ask when the number 1 began to exist. Therefore God. God is coming up. The number 1 began to exist when people invented mathematics and started counting things. It existed in potentia before. I mean, the concept of a singular object existed, but there was no one there to count it and give it the name 1. The concept of oneness does not exist if there are no minds in which for there to exist this idea, which you just said it's an idea, Nash. So the number 1 is not eternal because ideas exist in minds, and yeah. Not only has the number 1 always existed, just demonstrated that that was wrong according to you, it is impossible for the number 1 to ever change. No. I'll give you an example right now. This right here, this is 1. I know that it's 2 bullets. Well, it's actually a lighter, but bad example? Okay, here. These stickers. This right here. This is 1 thing. Okay? This is 5 things. What have I done? Have I changed the number 1? No, I just changed what it referred to. See, this 1 sticker is 1 thing. This is 2 things. That's what we call it. I can change what 1 means by saying that 2 is 1, but what this really means is that I'm still dealing with 2. Binary is a great way to deal with this thing. 2 is actually written as 1, 0. 4 is written as 1, 0, 0. Does that change what 1 is? Does that change what 2 is? No, it's a different way of representing it. The fact that you can write the number 1 and say equals this many things doesn't change the 1 so much as you're just playing around with words, which is exactly what Nash is doing here. If the number 1 were ever changed, it would cease to be the number 1. Yes, it would no longer be the number 1. It would be the number 1 applied to something that is not 1. Oh wait, that was a contradiction, wasn't it? After all, if the idea of oneness changed, let us say, into the number 2, then it would no longer be the number 1. Right, it would be the number 2, and it would represent one thing. Yes, this would represent one thing. This is 1, is what he's saying here. Has the idea of oneness changed? No, the word one has changed. This is still oneness, and this is now the word one, according to this bullshit. Oneness has not changed, so the entire point is wrong. I'm really starting to question if this actually is the guy from A Beautiful Mind, or whatever that movie was, or whoever that analyst was, because frankly, this kind of shoddy thinking is something I have not seen since Isaac Newton. It's just, wow. So where are we? I believe we can show many people that the concept of oneness is an eternal and unchanging idea that exists in some mind. And the only kind of mind in which this kind of eternal and unchanging idea could exist must be an eternal and unchanging mind, because if you make up a bad point, supported it with a bad conclusion. When I reach this point in my little example, some student in the back of the classroom usually raises his hand and asks if I'm talking about God. Good for that student. Hey, dumbass, are you talking about God? If you are, I'm getting the fuck out of here and getting a real teacher. This argument is very interesting if you're a simpleton, in that it can be employed in the service of various considerations that have no relevance to any fucking thing that actually exists. For example, you may replace the term the number one with the laws of logic and produce a similar argument that is equally flawed. Let us now consider these as a whole and note how they demonstrate none of God's attributes. It actually says some, but I'm being honest to my sarcastic reading at this point. The cosmological argument demonstrates God's omnipotence, that God is infinitely powerful. The theological argument demonstrates that God is an intelligent being, a purposeful creator. The ontological argument demonstrates that God is a necessary being, the uncausable first cause. The moral argument demonstrates that God is a moral being, he will never act against his moral nature. Dostoevsky's arguments... Is it Dostoevsky's or Dostoyevsky's? I thought it was Dostoevsky's. I could be wrong. I don't really know the name. Demonstrates that without God as the premise for ethics, subjective or individual relative morals are all we have. And that proves God's existence how? The religion's need and joy argument demonstrate that God is the fulfillment of the ultimate human need. Nothing but God will fill the void in the human soul. Okay, let's pretend we do have a void in the soul that we supposedly have, which doesn't exist, but let's, for the sake of this bullshit argument, say we do have a soul and there is a void in it. Nothing but God will fill that void. Then fuck you, you're never going to fulfill that void, because your God doesn't need to fucking exist in order to fulfill a void that you assert exists, in a soul that you assert exists, to fulfill this bullshit argument of yours. This is, yes, these arguments demonstrate things, but they are based on bullshit and therefore prove nothing. You can just as easily demonstrate that. Here's one that I often use, and I apologize to people who hate racism as I do, but it's a good attention catcher. All niggers are criminals. That argument demonstrates that all niggers are criminals. Except it doesn't actually demonstrate, it doesn't prove anything, right? It just asserts things as true and calls it an argument and says it demonstrates things. No, it does no such thing. You can then also create the argument that, hey, the prisons have more black people in them in the United States than white people, therefore all niggers must be criminals. No, because that's not based on all of the facts. You're creating a bullshit argument and coming to a bullshit conclusion and saying, therefore it's demonstrated. Wrong. So this was a not painful, but just really annoying to deal with because of the setup. But that's the end of chapter 7. Again, short pause, video number 8 coming shortly.